All right, if you're a Republican politician who wants to shrink the government, do you stay in the Republican Party or maybe jump ship to the Libertarian Party? With me are former Republican Governor of New Mexico, Gary Johnson, and former Republican Congressman Bob Barr of Georgia. Congressman Barr left the Republicans to become the 2008 presidential candidate of the Libertarian Party. Gentlemen, you have both criticized the drug war and the surveillance state it creates. We know that. But Congressman Barr, you didn't always fear Big Brother the way you do today. You voted in favor of the Patriot Act. You were once a member of the CIA. What changed your mind?
Well, actually, the bill that I voted for, which I now know and have long realized was the worst vote that I cast in my 8 years in the Congress, was the Patriot Act. The way the government has used that powers in the Patriot Act far beyond what was intended, the fact that they have continually tried to expand the powers in the Patriot Act, the fact that they have never reported properly to Congress or the American people on how they're using it, that, to me, was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Governor Johnson, if you're a Republican who wants to shrink government, should you stay in the Republican Party where you're paired with many big government types who gave George Bush everything he wanted, or should you leave the Republican Party as your colleague Congressman Barr did?
You know, I think Republicans have always been about the religion of the pocketbook, and I think if Republicans will return to the religion of the pocketbook, they'll be around and do great benefit to this country. So I'm a Republican. I'm going to stay a Republican, and to me, it's all about cost-benefit analysis. What are we spending, and what are we getting for the money we're spending?
Congressman Barr, within about a 15-block radius of where I am now standing in the middle of New York City, there are close to 10,000 surveillance cameras in the streets. The government now wants to add to that drones, the same type of drones that they use to shoot people with from the skies in Pakistan over certain sensitive American borders. Are we losing our senses when it comes to surveillance?
We absolutely are, Judge. Not only are many of those surveillance cameras that are mounted on now police cars, other public utility vehicles, even lamp posts, buildings, and so forth. Not only are those watching what people are doing 24/7, but many of those now are being equipped with devices to pick up sounds and target sounds and so forth. And now what the government wants to do is to start using, and they already are surreptitiously doing this, Judge, drones, not just on the border, but over populated metropolitan areas. This is extremely dangerous. The FAA, Federal Airline Administration, has said so. But also, it is very, very violative of our privacy rights, and our Fourth Amendment rights is guaranteed.
Governor Johnson, why does the government want to spy on us like this? What do they gain from it?
I don't have any idea, really. I am opposed to spying. At some point, at the rate we're going, we're all going to be assigned our own satellite. We're going to all be assigned our own satellite with personal surveillance and a government employee to monitor that surveillance. And again, the crazy spending, the fact that we're bankrupt in this country, the fact that we're flying drones across the border. Look, the notion of securing the border at putting the National Guard arm in arm across 1,600 miles of border, I just think that the drones are an extension of this spending that's out of control with really no relative benefit.
Congressman Barr, the people who support all of these cameras in the streets and drones in the skies and microphones picking up our conversations always say to me, but Judge, I'm not doing anything wrong. I have nothing to hide. And besides, if it keeps me safe, I'm in favor of it. Would you address that bogus argument, please?
I heard it throughout my 2008 presidential campaign, Judge, and I hear it even today, mostly from Republicans and so-called conservatives. The fact of the matter is that you do have something to fear when the government is surveilling your words, your voices, or your movements. Because even though you may think you have nothing to hide and you're doing nothing wrong, you have no earthly idea what some government bureaucrat sitting in a room far away listening to what you're saying or watching what you're doing is going to conclude. Secondly, the fact, and Jeremy Bentham realized this back in the 18th century, when people think that they are being surveilled by the authorities, it alters their behavior. They become, and in fact are, less free.
Wow. Governor Johnson, do you have cameras like this in New Mexico, or is it just in the high-populated areas like New York?
No, I think we're in the process of dismantling those cameras. I'll tell you, I got on the airplane the other day and my toothpaste was confiscated because it had 1 ounce of toothpaste in a 6-ounce container. You know, I'm feeling a lot more safe about flying as a result of that.
Wow. It seems to me we fought a Cold War for 40 years against governments that did to their people what our popularly elected government, you know, where we vote for the people that write the laws, is now doing to us. Governor Gary Johnson, Congressman Bob Barr, it's a pleasure. Thanks for sticking with us. Is government treading on Don't Tread on Me? You won't believe this one. The plain truth next. Last week we asked you if you thought President Obama was right to fire General McChrystal. 89% of you said yes. Here are some of the responses. Deborah from Utah said, McChrystal should have known not to say anything at all when in public. Too bad Obama couldn't just scold him, but I understand why he fired him. But Braxton from North Carolina said, Obama got upset because McChrystal was telling the truth, and he couldn't handle it. Remember the First Amendment? So McChrystal was definitely not in the wrong about what he did. And now for this week's question. Do the states have the right to nullify unconstitutional federal laws? Email us a short and snappy response with the word nullify in the subject line at freedomwatch@foxbusiness.com or our social networks at foxbusiness.com/freedomwatch. And now the plain truth. Since our last show, the federal government has spent about $80 billion a day. It has spent about $1.6 billion a day just paying interest on the national debt. This week, the Senate held confirmation hearings on the nominee for the Supreme Court, who argues that campaign finance laws give the government the power to ban books. But that shouldn't worry anyone, because the government probably wouldn't go after your books. Do you trust the government's self-restraint? I say the government has no self-restraint. 2 months after the BP oil spill, the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee approved legislation that would remove the damages cap that's been in place for 20 years, finally exposing big oil to the consequences of its own negligence. Suddenly, the free market and an insurance carrier will be left to clean up the mess that the feds facilitated and know nothing about fixing. Meanwhile, the state of Connecticut has decreed that the famous Gadsden flag, with its ever-popular "Don't Tread on Me" slogan, cannot be flown at the Connecticut State House. Whatever happened to freedom of speech? Still, if the government ever becomes too oppressive, as Jefferson reminded us in the Declaration of Independence, we have a right and a duty to alter and abolish it. Jefferson also wrote of that essential American value that we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, and that among these is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and woe to any government that tries to take those rights away. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week from New York. Happy birthday, America.